Hi everyone, and welcome to this episode of Virtuell Hverdag. Today I'm talking with Wilfried, Pimenta di Miranda, from the IOTA Foundation. IOTA is probably one of the most interesting cryptocurrencies and blockchain technologies which we have out in the market today, and it's totally changing how the market operates, especially machine to machine. So I hope you guys enjoy this episode. It's really interesting. Hi Wilfried, thanks for having the time to come over.
Thanks for having me.
So let's just dive straight to it. What is IOTA and what do you do with AI?
Thanks. So IOTA is a non-for-profit registered in Germany. We originate from Norway, but we grew since 2017 into a global organization. So we're about, we're more than 100 people in 25 countries. And this organization is packed with researchers, engineers, so IT engineers, and business developers. And all together, what we do is to develop a new tech. It's an open source software, open source distributed ledger technology. We're part of the public or permissionless distributed ledgers. Many people refer to blockchain, but we're actually not a blockchain. We're a distributed ledger beyond blockchain.
Because that's something different.
Yeah, so we sort of kept the vision. The co-founders have sort of kept the direction, the vision, the underlying technology behind Bitcoin, but we wanted to use this for another purpose. And through the process, the founders realized that conventional blockchain could not do the job when it comes to preparing for the real-world future, which is the Internet of Everything. So an environment that is hyper-connected, where actuators, sensors, connected devices in general are interfacing, sharing data securely to automate the world. Right?
Yeah, because if I understand correctly, IOTA is used for machine-to-machine transactions. Is that correct?
Yeah, so there's a weird thing that in the media, people like to talk around cryptocurrency, right? Because it's sort of speculative and so on. And of course, there's a sort of a legacy coming from Bitcoin as a cryptocurrency. So people, just make the shortcut, and that's what you may hear often around IOTA as being the Norwegian cryptocurrency. We have a Norwegian origin, which justifies why that is. However, the cryptocurrency, there's an element of it in our technology stack, but it's an option. So our distributed ledger is actually quite specific if you look at the space of blockchain, because we have created the technology that can be utilized for also other purposes than payment.
Okay, and for example, what?
So I encapsulate this into the idea of digital trust. And so in the future, you can just imagine an environment that is hyper-connected, self-driving vehicles with a lot of stakes, right? So those vehicles are going to carry us, and they'll be automatized. So you want this to be fully bulletproof. You don't want to have any sort of a hacking. You want to allow those self-driving vehicles to share data in a real spot, real life, and start to trade money as well, because the vehicle is going to have to charge itself, to pay for parking, for tolling, and so on. This will be a real-time environment, and we want this to be interoperable. That means you want to rely on a slightly different backbone. And so in that context, the self-driving vehicle is actually an autonomous economic agent, we call them. And so we're going to equip the machine, in that context, that was a self-driving vehicle, with the ability to pay.
Okay.
In a peer-to-peer fashion. That means the self-driving vehicle could pay the smart charger or the toll gate. So this is a machine-to-machine economy. And it scares people when we talk about the machine. So machine-to-machine economy in this world
Terminator.
of automation. Yeah, exactly, right? So, and from a citizen's point of view,
buy guns.
It's not very seducing. We use also the term of the economy of things. But what it is basically the digital economy. Because that's the world we are all entering. It's going to be hyper-connected. It's the digital economy, and we'll have a degree of automation. And these will be operated through connected devices. In the world of industry, they just refer to these as machines.
And where in this landscape does IOTA come in?
So in the technology stack that is going to shape this future, hyper-connected environment, you have the introduction of IoT. So IoT complements legacy systems as source of data. Those are sensors, right, that are going to be fed all over the place. And they're going to provide a source of data. Now this data wants to go in big data, and then AI wants to harvest this, right? to create value, to make it better understandable, and make business, for example, out of it. But in between, you have an issue. You have an issue around data integrity. So when an AI receives data, we need to have a means to ensure that the data that is arriving at the doorstep is actually the data it's supposed to be.
Okay, because that doesn't always happen.
It doesn't happen. In the future, the data will be the new oil, right? The data is value. So you will have a lot of people with an incentive to hack the system, or sometimes you just have a different reason for the data to have been tampered with because the system just doesn't work. So you need to have a way to authenticate the data to provide a sort of signature system. And that's what IOTA provides. So it's the notion of data integrity, providing a means to ensure that the data has not been tampered with. So if you measure from a sensor data today, 5 years down the line, when the AI engine gets that data, it can say, yeah, that's actually the data from that sensors, nothing happened to it.
Okay.
And the way this works is that IOTA, as a distributed ledger, provides a single source of truth. So we never store the raw data on our distributed ledger, but we store signatures of those raw data. The raw data will be stored in a distributed environment, in the cloud, for example. But we have this unique signatures that is a very compressed version of the data, if you want, and you can store this in a distributed fashion.
Okay, because when we're talking about signature of data, what comes to mind is that you need to have a lot of storage space.
Yeah. So
and this will be quite costly.
Yeah, so this is a misconception for people entering the blockchain space sometimes. So we never store the raw data. Simply because you would replicate all the data of the world. Absolutely. It wouldn't make any sense. There's also other reasons that are going to be very valid is that GDPR, for example, says that you're supposed to be able to erase your data. So if you start to play with your own digital twin, right, your new Facebook, whatever, you don't want to put that data on a distributed ledger because those distributed ledger has the specificity of being immutable. You will never be able to change what's in this distributed environment.
Will you be able to delete?
So you don't delete. No, you can't
okay,
delete.
so whatever is there is there.
That's why you would not put your personal data there.
Okay.
But you can put signatures because those are encrypted signatures.
And those can be changed.
Yeah, and you can always change, and you can actually, through a distributed ledger, prove that, if the mistake was done in your digital passport, it was a mistake, it has been corrected, and actually it will be immutable. It will show that there was a mistake and it has been changed. But it doesn't necessarily provide directly access to the personal data.
Understand. So where in all of this does AI come in?
So it's this interface, right? It's this idea that at the doorstep of your AI engine, you want to have data that can be trusted. So this is really how we bring our value. Eventually, things will happen also directly on the edge. So AI will be operating directly on the edge at the level of connected devices. And you will have an interesting mix between IoT, blockchain or IOTA and AI, and that will be a very interesting convergence. But you need to have sufficient capacity or computing capacity to do those type of things. So a lot of things will change in the future when we get there. And now people are working on, so for our sake, validating IOTA and making sure that the algorithms we use are as efficient as they can be so that the chips, the microchips, can actually do the processing required to ensure this trust layer. And on the journey, we start to develop different dialogues with a different microelectronics company like ST Microelectronics, something we announced a bit before a few months ago, where we start to integrate IOTA really into the sort of hardware. IoT
into the chips and everything?
Into the boards that are sort of multifunction, and start to bring the functionalities that IOTA was to provide around digital trust, first of all, and then eventually the means of payment, because eventually the boards will be fed into connected devices that will have a wallet, for example, right? And they will be able to interface machine to machine.
And is this a world where one company takes the complete market, or will IOTA interact with other type of distributed ledgers as well?
So where we are coming from is really the idea that if you look at internet, the value potential of internet blossomed when it became an open internet, not when it was an intranet.
Yep.
So we come from that angle that this needs to be open, permissionless, we call it. So the technology is permissionless in the way that it can be governed and hosted in a permissionless fashion. But anybody can really access the network to innovate. So we want to foster that idea, and we're growing a whole ecosystem that is completely open, permissionless. That means you want to innovate, you go for it, and we'll be here to support you, and we'll also do some matchmaking. And the technology is really, and the way we have set up the organization is really meant to provide this sort of new TCP/IP, right? TCP/IP to the internet. We want to be the new TCP/IP for the Internet of Everything with the new features. And for that reason, we develop a technology that is open source. We're in the process of moving towards an enterprise version that will need to be governed also by our key stakeholders to weigh in order to develop further the code and different modules and building blocks that comes on top of the technology, open source. And we are non-for-profit, so because the technology is so powerful that it shouldn't be acquired by one single player.
And that's quite commendable as well, because at least up to my knowledge, IOTA is one of the leading distributed ledgers that is non-for-profit.
Yeah, there's a few non-for-profit actually organizations like that. Because it's the sort of right to play, you know. It's a recognition that you can't do it alone, so you need to have a more ecosystem approach to it. Then there's different degree of how you open up your ecosystem. If you look at what Facebook has tried to do with Libra, they were trying to do a closed ecosystem, and there was an entry ticket. You know, you would pay a few $1 million to get in and get in the right to host the network and wrap up the benefits. And that creates a bit of a tension because we're talking about the monetary system.
Exactly.
And you know, I would say probably the governance around those types of monetary system in particular. Today, the central banks in different countries, this is sort of their responsibility, right? So that's one of the challenges, I suppose, that Facebook has faced.
Exactly.
In addition to have a challenge on the track record in terms of e-privacy, because one of the things they were probably looking into is how to get intelligence on how each one of us is spending, right? Which is very valuable.
It absolutely is. As I said, that's currently the role of the central government and those type of organizations.
Hi everyone, and sorry for the short interruption. But if you come this far to the podcast, it means that we do something right here at Virtuell Hverdag. So I would love if you can just spend 2-3 seconds to rate, comment, or share this podcast. It would mean very much to me. So thank you, and back to the episode.
But do you believe that in the future now with BitLock and distributed ledger, that those type of roles will change or diffuse, and then more organizations are going to take that type of role as well?
Yeah, I think the world is moving. Of course, there are central banks for a reason. They are centralized. So they do have a responsibility defined by their sovereignty. What we see, and they're moving in that space, right? So there's a lot of different initiatives around digital currencies to digitalize the national ones. Recently, China is looking into this, and that has catalyzed. In Norway, the Norges Bank is also looking at this, and that's a DLT and blockchain is one of the alternative directions in terms of enabling such a digital currency approach. IOTA, what we're trying to create, is not meant to challenge this. We are an enabling technology, so we are neutral to the outcome. We're not ideologue. But what we see is that we need more interoperability, even cross-border. So what we're creating is more of a borderless, across verticals,
and by
across
border, you
countries.
mean national borders?
Yes, yeah, and it's meant to feed the Internet of Things.
Understand.
Right? So interconnectivity, and so this is the rationale. It's not encapsulated into one specific region. So we will be a complementary technology to what national currencies are trying to do, and there will be interoperability, of course, into this, so that we can, bring value also to IOTA, bring exchanges to fiat currencies, and maybe in the future it will be in the digital form.
And do you have any examples of where IOTA is already implemented, like POCs or tests, which you can share?
Yeah, so the full commercial implementation is sort of yet to come, because we are still not deploying the enterprise version. We can say that we're sort of at the beta stage, but things are accelerating now because we are heading towards the sort of finalization of the protocol. There's a part of the software called the coordinator that we're removing. So it's a big effort that is bringing research and engineering on our side.
Absolutely is.
And we're going to go through a test net environment to make this bulletproof. And then we'll have a really interesting ride from that point. Then I think basically the commercial players will be able to deploy in full confidence the technology. Right now, a lot of the POCs and pilots are either running on the main net, which is not the final version, or on test nets, which are private tangles. So we are known for being a permissionless distributed ledger, but you can experiment with IOTA technology in a private environment. And in that private environment, you would play with the tech and you simulate the token. So the token doesn't really have a real value, can't be exchanged in markets, but you can simulate what would happen in the real world. So.
And do you have any examples?
Yeah, so there's different cases, right? So in the supply chain, you have established companies. IOTA has been integrated on POC in a platform called Everything that is delivering services for tracking T-shirts, right, luxury goods and so on. And you can already do this
from creation until supply?
Right. You trace the provenance of the goods in that case. There's mobility proof of concepts that have been done, so we're not necessarily driving the show. This is like multinationals taking the development under their arm. So one example is Jaguar Land Rover that created a car wallet based on IOTA, so that the vehicle now have the means to share securely data in and out and actually pay or get paid for that data.
Okay.
So Jaguar Land Rover uploaded with that wallet can detect, for instance, potholes in the street and would report this data to the regulators or to the authorities and get rewarded for doing that. And then, you can go and repair the road.
That is really cool.
So you have this, you can...
So your car can have a job.
Yeah, exactly. You incentivize the car because it's packed with sensors.
Yeah.
It can do this for reporting the traffic, for paying the toll gates, for paying for parking,
which
for
we're quite
smart
used
charging
to.
and so on. And we actually have an interesting development. So this is also on the pilot where I'm quite excited in Norway, where together with NTNU, the city of Trondheim, with ABB Norway, you have Powell, Arup, Avis Budget Group, a lot of different companies are doing test bed development in Trondheim in 3 different test beds, including NTNU campus, where we're going to demonstrate peer-to-peer energy. So this is a decentralized energy marketplace.
Okay.
So a building, so for example, the Entra powerhouse, it's a brand new building that creates excess energy thanks to its solar energy and thermal energy from the fjord. This building is going to be connected to microgrid. And eventually, the whole area of Brattøra is going to be self-sufficient, so creates more energy than it requires. But the challenge is to balance that microgrid. So we're creating a local energy market so that the building can sell excess energy to the neighbor building and to the battery or the electric vehicles that are coming to charge. And we create this as a positive energy block for the city. And then we'll have different blocks, and eventually the blocks will connect and then result in creating a positive energy city that is packed with green energy. So this is a really big stake in the domain of energy worldwide, and what we are creating in Norway, in Trondheim, is one out of different test beds backed by a new project called City Exchange. It's a total budget of 30 million euro over 4 years. And now we're getting into a very interesting phase where we start to play with the technology and showcase.
And does it work?
Yeah, So interestingly, in this domain, I would say there's different dialogues, but challenges. But I can say, there's 3 blocks. Right? One is the technology side, in terms of IOTA needs to do its job, but there's other technological components in this. You need to have smart chargers. You have electric vehicles. All those things need to work.
It needs to be integrated.
Absolutely. Integration, interoperability.
That is hard.
Yeah, it's hard. It takes time. We just need to do it, right? So you have that part. You have the idea of business model. What we're doing is to create an ecosystem solution. It's not a plug-in solution where we can prototype it on the corner and then just bring it. The reality is that we are shaping a new business model. This will be actually a platform that is orchestrated and probably operated by Trondheim Energi, the local utility. They are part of the project. It's a new approach to their role, right? And we need to define what are the rules of the game now. How do you determine price?
Exactly.
Who
that was
controls
my
what,
thought.
who sees what, and so on. And so this is a human factor. Technology is not going to solve this. We need to come to a consensus in determining the rules of the game.
But you absolutely also need algorithms to decide what price when.
An algorithm will be computed afterwards to reflect what we have all agreed in terms of market design. So this is a big part, and we started the journey, or our partners did a good chunk of the work, and now we're going to start bringing this into the code and orchestrate it. I would say the third leg that I wanted to point out in terms of challenge, or why also this project is very interesting, is that doing this business model is actually out of the current law. The regulator of energy in Norway, NVE, would not tolerate this peer-to-peer market today.
Really? Why? Even though it has a positive impact. As you said, it's green energy.
So we need to prove it. So that's what we do, right? So the project is meant to, we create regulatory sandboxes. So the environments we have access to in Trondheim are not only test beds, physical test beds with real buildings and so on. It is also a regulatory sandbox. That means we are going to experiment with very strange way of doing things, and we are proactively engaging with our regulator so that they understand what we're doing, where the value is coming from.
Do they understand? Because that's also my question. Distributed ledger technology is not an easy technology to understand.
So what's
and
the
I've
most,
tried to understand for quite a while.
So the reality is that people do not need to understand distributed ledger technology or how it works. Especially in the context where, in that project, where there's 32 partners.
Exactly.
And the regulator is not necessarily asking about how IOTA is working. IOTA is just an enabling technology, actually. We're just a small provider into this whole orchestration, because you will have vehicles, you have buildings, it's a level of complexity way beyond just IOTA. IOTA is just an enabling factor. And what the regulator is going to be interested in is not the technology. They just want to know, is that properly orchestrated? What are the implications on the energy market, the grid interface, the balancing, and what would happen if we scale this national-wide, for example? So this is their main interest. But so this is very interesting because it's sort of proof that in Norway we can move quite fast. And one thing that we've learned through the process is that the Norwegian platform is excellent for doing this sort of public-private partnership. So when you think about it, IOTA is really interacting on the critical infrastructure level. It's not a plug-in solution type of thing, it's based on IOTA and hop you go. You're really transforming the digital economy. It needs to be a public-private partnership approach, and that's what we're doing in Trondheim. And we make it work because in Norway, we actually trust each other. So I had a conversation recently.
Because that's a really important part to all of it.
Yeah, well, actually, some people, when they looked at blockchain, they thought, the government is failing, so now we're going to come in with a digital trust layer, and we're going to shortcut this process.
Yep, remove that part of the government.
And so this is interesting, is that IOTA is more interested in creating value for the future, and this future is hyper-connected. It's a different rationale. And because Norway has a trusted environment, we can actually innovate faster as human beings across silos. We can get into the room, get the municipalities and the big companies and the local stakeholder having a shop, putting solar panel on the rooftop, and we can all innovate together faster than it would be probably in a very big megapole, where you have many layers of hierarchy, right? And
I completely agree.
And so this is a key competitive advantage to leverage. So it goes against a bit the intuition of many people have, like the Bitcoin or blockchain that is here to sort of challenge the government. It's a completely different reality. When we work, we are trying to be heavily regulated and have an impact on industry. And now we're shifting to a mode of how do we make it really happen? And it's the human work. It's really collaboration. We call it co-creation. And going forward in Norway, we want to basically replicate what we achieved in Norway, in Trondheim. We're at the beginning of the journey still, but we see a lot of benefits.
And when can we expect proper implementation of it? Because now it's still the testing phase of IOTA.
Yeah. So
when can we expect?
I think there will be, so in context of Trondheim, it will be staged. Within 2 years, we need to come up with a showcase, and this will start being replicated to other cities afterwards. So, it's going to come fairly fast.
That's quick.
The reality in that specific project is that IOTA's contribution is going a bit faster. So we have sort of partly done our job, and then we need to explain how IOTA works to our partners so they can probably integrate things. But we have open source blueprints available on our website so that you can run peer-to-peer energy networks. So we're actually providing this for free. Now we're taking
Is it possible to learn something about this online somewhere?
Yes. We try to document as much as possible. We're very open around it. So
And where's that?
So on IOTA.org and our blog in particular, on blog.iota.org, you can find a lot of things about our projects. And recently, I think it was 2 weeks ago, we published an update on our city exchange developments. And we talk about peer-to-peer energy and mobility as a service.
That's really cool. Thanks a lot, Wilfried, for taking time to explain this.
Yeah, cool. No problem. Thanks a lot.